Welcome, everybody, to the 44th class in this Bhagavad Gita study series. We are studying the ninth chapter, a very important chapter having the essence of the Upanishads. It's called Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga. It is the royal sovereign's knowledge and the sovereign secret. And as usual, we'd like to acknowledge Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati for the traditional rendering of Vedanta as it was done for over 1,000 years, starting with Adi Shankaracharya. And we'll say a small prayer to the lineage of teachers before we start the class. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Salutations to the lineage, starting with Lord Sadashiva, with Adi Shankaracharya in the middle, and continuing up to our immediate teacher, Swami Paramarthananda Saraswati. With this, we will go into the point where we left off. We were talking about the two forms of bhakti, the Sakama Bhakti and the Nishkama Bhakti. Sakama Bhakti is devotion with a desire, to desire for money, desire for health, desire for pleasure. So that's called Sakama Bhakti. And even at the end of their lifetimes, sometimes people would want a desire to go to the heavens. So they do puja specifically for this. So this is called Sakama Bhakti. And that's there not just in the Sanatana Dharma traditions, but in other religions too. They pray so they can go to heaven. And then there is Nishkama Bhakti. Kama is desire, a strong urge, craving. Nishkama Bhakti is without those desires. The only desire you have is for the infinite, which is liberation from samsara. And that is what we are studying now. So we saw first Bhagavan makes fun of these people who want to go to heaven to get all the pleasures, but eventually after their merits gets exhausted, they come back into the Bhuloka. So we saw the two famous shlokas, 20 and 21. Te tam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam shine punye martyalokam vishanti evam trayi dharmam anuprapanna gata gatam kama kama labante. So, having attained the Swarga, the heavens, they reside there, but after their merits gets exhausted, Shine Punya means merits getting exhausted, Martyalokam Vishanti. Martyalokam is the place of mortal world, which is the place of birth and death. That is the Bhuloka. And Evam Trayi Dharmam Anuprapanan, following these three Vedas, the three dharmas, they go and come back. Gata gatam kama kama labante. They they desire more desires and they just go come back. So it's like a vicious cycle. That is what Bhagavan is making fun of. And then comes a very important shloka. Now he's made fun of the people, Sakama Bhaktas. Now he's going to talk about the Nishkama Bhaktas, those who worship for the sake of spiritual purification of the mind to get liberation. So, what is the very famous shloka of this? Ananya chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nitya viyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Those people who think of me without thinking of anything else. Anything else means worldly and outwardly pleasures, desires, and who worship me, for them, the ever united, I take care of both yoga and kshema. Okay? So it is a very dense shloka. So we'll go over word by word. Yoga Kshemam, this word, you some of you may be familiar with. If you look at the Life Insurance Corporation of India, where people invest insurance, money for insurance, this is their motto, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. We take care of the acquisition and preservation. So yoga, the word has different meanings. One of the meanings is yoga. Patanjali gives the meaning chitta vritti nirodha, cessation of the turbulence of the mind. Here, yoga also means union. It can be union of jivatma and paramatma, union of the body and the mind, because we live in our heads all the time. We are disconnected from the body. So yoga also means that. Here, yoga means union. So what it means is union or acquisition. Here, yoga is not used in the traditional sense of yoga practice. It is used in the sense of yoga means acquire or union. You acquire things. Shema means preservation. So yoga kshemam vahamyaham. I will take care of the yoga acquisition and preservation for those people. So this is people, others, they go after things and they struggle. But for those who purify the mind, things come to them. That is what Bhagavan is saying. Ananyas chintayantaha. So those who think without thinking of others, ananya, other things is worldly and outwardly pleasures. Ye jana, those people. Paryupasate. Paryupasate means they worship me strongly. Pari plus upasate. Upasana refers to meditation, worship in this context, more in the terms of constant meditation on Ishvara. Pari upasate from all directions. Pari means around. So that's why Parikshit, Arjuna's grandson, Abhimanyu's son, why was he called Parikshit? Because this guy, Dronacharya's son, he um, wields the Brahmastra at all the heirs to the Pandava dynasty, and then Bhagavan stops that. How does he do it? When it enters Subhadra's womb, Bhagavan goes around and protects. And that is why Parikshit means Parikshit was like a baby, the fetus in the womb. The fetus was looking all around with all these astra going around, trying to penetrate, and Bhagavan stopping. That is why Parikshit is named Parikshateha. That is, Ikshate means sees. So he was seeing all around. That's how he got the name Parikshit. So Pari means around. So those who have devotion all around, they are called Pari Upasataha. Tesham, for them, Nitya Abhiyuktanam, the ever united Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. I will take care of the yoga and the Shema, that is acquisition and the preservation. So, in the previous two verses, as we saw, Krishna talked about the Sakama Bhakta or the Manda Bhakta, the dull form of devotees, for whom God is only the means. They look upon God to go to heaven, go acquire these things. That's why they go and pray. And for them, what's the end? Worldly pleasures. So world is the end. Now, in this important verse, which is very often quoted, Bhagavan talks about the Madhyama Bhakta or the Nishkama Bhakta. Madhyama Bhakta is the middle level of Bhakta, for whom God is not the means for other things. God is the means also and the end also. That is, God is the end. That is the highlight of the shloka. They want to attain liberation or into God or into Brahman. When God is the end, Swamiji says the love for God will be certainly superior, because if you study your mind is always obsessed with the end alone. For the Sakama Bhakta, the end is worldly pleasures. The means is God. So the love for the end, which is the worldly pleasures, is more than the love for the God. Here, for the Nishkama Bhakta, their love for this attaining this moksha, liberation, or God, whatever the state that you call, is more. Okay? In the case of the Madhyama Bhakta, that person does all the worldly transactions. but the absorption is the ultimate goal in the life. This person is no different from anybody else. So we saw that in the fifth chapter also. Pashyan shrunvan sprishan jagran ashnan gachan swapan swashan pralapan visrajan grinnan unmishan nimishan api. So in the fifth chapter, we saw while doing all the actions, this person knows that I am not the doer. Similarly, the Madhyama Bhakta, while doing all this, he offers it as to the higher thing, the entity that surrounds God or Brahman or whatever you call it. So, this, the absorption is the ultimate goal of that person's life. So this entity is called Bhagavan in the Puranic language. In all the Puranas, Bhagavata Purana, it's called Bhagavan. It is called Moksha in the Vedantic language. The state when you reach, there's no return. It's called Moksha. It is called Tivra Mumukshutvam also in the Vedantic language. The intense yearning to get liberated. Jignasu Bhakti in the seventh chapter language. Artho Jignasu Artati Jnani Chabaratarshaba Tesham Jnani Nitya Yuktaha Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate. So Krishna tells you you have to take care of Yogakshema to some extent, but thinking that we can provide perfect security is the greatest myth in life. So we already saw that apara prakriti, leaning onto apara prakriti is a bad idea because it is never constant. It's there, it's gone. So the next question is Lord indeed reliable? This, whatever this Brahman or the Ishvara you call it, is this reliable? So Krishna gives a guarantee card. He says, I will take care. You just do purify your mind to attain God or liberation. I will do the rest for you. Krishna says he gives a guarantee card. That's what he does in the shloka. Very important shloka. I put a highlight. Okay. So sadhana, this is the second classification of bhaktas. So manda bhakta, lowest form, madhyama bhakta, and then uttama bhakta. Uttama bhakta is the jnani. The jnani knows aham brahmasmi. I am that same consciousness that pervades in the universe. Madhyama bhakta is the nishkama bhakta. God is the means and the end. Ultimate goal of Madhyama Bhakta is moksha. For those people, Bhagavan will take care of yoga, acquiring whatever is required. Remember, it's required, not for all kinds of pleasures, not for greed. Shema, preserving what was acquired. So the reference from the seventh chapter on the three types of bhaktas, Artho, Jignasu, Artharthi. Okay. Swami Ji here makes a double entendre, a risk joke. He says, you want to remodel or beautify your homes. You do all the transactions with the architect. You talk to the architect, but you never fall in love with the architect because architect is only a means and your end goal is the one that you want, your home. And Swamiji says, I hope that is true. Why is this superior? Because if you study your mind, the mind is always, as I said, always obsessed with the end alone. All right, next going to the 23rd shloka. Ye pyanja devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mam eva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Oh Kaunteya, Kaunteya is Kunti's son, Arjuna. Even those devotees who worship other devatas, they also worship me alone, unknowingly and by the wrong method. Avidhi purvakam. Avidhi purvakam means vidhi is shastra vidhi, that right method of doing things. Avidhi purvakam means through the wrong method. Okay, so yepi, ye api means even those Yepi anya devata bhakta, those devotees who worship other devatas. So in India, it's very common to worship the Navagrahas, the Shani, Surya, all those, right? Because people believe they'll be relieved of their disease, they'll get money, all those things. So, what Bhagavan is saying is, even those people who are worshipping them, eventually they worship me without knowing and by the wrong method. Mam eva Kaunteya Yajanti, because oh Mam eva, me alone. Mam eva means alone, me alone, O Kunti's son. Yajanti means they worship. So the next question is, the Nishkama Bhaktas are those who worship me. What is me here? Does it mean that every seeker of moksha should worship Krishna, who's the narrator? Which god, which god is a better form of worship? Krishna, Shiva, and who does me actually refer to? Okay, so that's the question. So Krishna says, when people worship those graha devatas, that is Shani, they do not know that this worship does not go to the devata at all. Really speaking, through them, it is coming to me alone, because the Shani and all those things are included in me. Te api mameva kaunteya yajanti. Okay, so, okay, skip it. Me refers to the greater form, refers to the para prakriti, the formless God, because any God with form is finite. But really, this God or the entity that pervades the universe it is infinite. So Bhagavan, that's what he clearly says in the seventh chapter. Yo yo yam yam tanum paktaha shraddaya chitum ichyati tasya tasya chalam shraddam tameva vidadam yaham. Whatever be the devotee in whichever form they worship with faith, that very faith I will make unshakable for them. So, and me here refers to the Paraprakriti, the formless God, because any form of God is finite. Okay, so far everything clear? Anybody has any questions? Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvenaśyasvan tatvenatascha pantite. Okay, indeed, I alone, I alone am the receiver. Bhokta means enjoyer. Here it means receiver. I alone am the receiver. Prabhu Evacha, I am also the Lord of all these yajnas, forms of worship. Now we see this word yajna is used again and again, because in those days they did a lot of yajnas. That is how they thought if they wanted rain, they did a yajna. So it also purified the all this chanting, it purified the environment. So they did a lot of yajna. So Krishna uses yajna as an example. I am the Lord of all yajnas, all forms of worship offerings, but they do not know me in reality, therefore they fail. So the physical form or the finite form is the superficial nature. So when you go for the superficial things, success is not guaranteed. So that's what Bhagavan says here. I am the receiver and the Lord of all yajnas, but they do not know me in reality, therefore they fail. He's talking about those who worship these other gods. So in the previous shloka, um, the problem with this avidhi purvakam means people who do not know the scriptural ordinances. They are ignorant of the fact that all the finite devas are included in me. By worshipping me, they have worshipped all the devatas and they don't know. So this idea is further clarified here. Aham sarva yajnanam bhoktaha. I'm the receiver of all forms of worship. Okay. So Swamiji gives this example. So when you're buying a home, we hand the money to the escrow. We don't hand the money to the seller. and the escrow eventually gives it to the seller, right? So even though these people worship these devatas, eventually the money comes, or the things come, propitiating things come from Bhagavan. This is just the intermediate entity. So the power to the finite devatas are given by me alone, Bhagavan says, with which they bless their devotee. But all of these inner workings, these people do not know. Natumam abhijananti, my real nature, Krishna indirectly conveys he has two natures, because Krishna says that they do not know my real nature. And it means what? He has two natures. One is the superficial, unnatural nature, the other is the essential real nature. And what is that essential real nature? Brahman, without form, infinite, the consciousness that pervades the entire universe. The superficial form, the finite form, is the unreal nature, because it's temporary, taken by the Lord on Ashtami, Janmashtami. Bhagavan is born. It was not before, it was not there after Swargarohan. So after Bhagavan ascends the heavens, back to Swarga, that form vanishes. It So Krishna was not there, that particular Shariram. Maya Manushya Vesham. It is called, it is a Vesham, it is a guise that Bhagavan takes up to come into this earth, because he has to follow the rules, the laws. Prakritim swam avashtabhya sambhavami atma maya. By own maya, I manifest myself in the earth as avatara. Okay, so this he's comparing those people who worship all these intermediate deities to get these desires, sakama bhaktas who worship these intermediate deities. Bhagavan says the real nature, if you know and you ask for nishkama bhakti, liberation, that is a higher form of worship. Are there any questions so far? Patya, Lataji, Ravi, anything? It's an important portion. All good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
So Ganeshji, whenever he is saying me, that is we need to think about it as the unmanifest form.
Yes. So that's a tricky thing. It is from the context. So in one place, Bhakta Saka Evacha, he says, there Bhagavan is referring to this embodied form of Krishna. Do you understand? So it is from the context. Here, Aham, when he says, it refers to the Brahman, the consciousness, the Para Prakriti. Okay? So we have to interpret based on the context. This is where Atma, we've talked about Atma, right? The same word has different meanings. Atma can mean Atma just means self. It can be your body, it can be the mind, and then the consciousness. And Lataji, you have a question? Lataji, you have a question?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, actually.
Can you mute? Yeah. All right.
Actually, good.
Okay. Okay. We'll go to the next shloka. Yanti deva prata devan Pitr yanti pitr prataha Bhutani yanti bhutejyaha Yanti madhyajinopi mam. Those who worship, yanti means worshipped. Those who worship the devas, gods reach the devas. Those who worship the Pitra, the ancestors, they reach the ancestral worlds, Pitra Loka. Bhutani yanti bhutejyaha. Those who worship the bhutas, the spirits, they reach the spirit worlds. Those who worship me come to me. So Bhagavan is giving all these examples. Reach me means reaching the state of liberation in Brahman. Okay? This is based on the famous Upanishadic statements, which says, Tam yata yata upasate tadeva bhavati. Whatever you worship unknowingly, you will become that. So if your role models, all these asura doesn't mean this things, entities with tusk and that's what Swamiji will say, tusk and big canine teeth. No, it is just people. If you have role models as people who are obnoxious, then you take their nature. That's essentially the meaning. It is in a poetic way. It says those who worship the devas reach the world of the devas.